Y'all don't clap after that?
Yes, we do. That was a beautiful.
It's a celebration.
It was a beautiful improvisation by Jenna. Thank you so much. And you should have a warm welcome. You're going to be with us a while. And we are so happy about that. Good morning, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Hendersonville and the Blue Ridge Mountains of western North Carolina, where the mountains embrace the sky, the waterfalls cleanse the soul, and the friendship warms the heart. I've got to be honest. Someone asked me recently, Chuck, did you make up that little monologue? And I said no. It actually comes from Dick Walgamot, who some of you may remember was very active in the fellowship and was president for a while and held other positions. But he devised that as part of a welcome for clubs visiting this area in friendship for us. And I've just kind of adopted it, and thank you for being understanding and allowing me to do it week after week. My name is Chuck Elston, your worship associate. At UUFH, we find ways to work together to make the world a better place. Here you can bring your whole self, your full identity, your expansive heart, a full range of emotions, and whomever you love. And here there's no footnote suggesting you have to change once you join. We love you the way you are. Let me extend a special welcome to visitors and first-timers. Please join us downstairs for coffee and conversation in Fellowship Hall. There are several announcements today. Well, actually, there's only one. And this is our distinguished president. I think I know your name, yeah. Becky Reed.
Good morning. As you may have heard, we are in the process of revitalizing our adult enrichment program. The definition of the responsibilities of this team, as described in the UUFH Governance Policies Handbook, are as follows. This team seeks to enhance the spiritual engagement and journeys of the adult members and friends of UUFH. The team creates, coordinates, and supports various activities, learning opportunities, and discussion groups. Some of these activities and/or groups arise for a season, whereas some become integral to the life of the congregation, or some could be a one-time event. The team has supported such activities as the men's discussion group, the women's discussion group, one of our leader here, covenant groups, and personal growth forums. We have just added a meditation group, which meets now here on Wednesdays, and I encourage you all to join us. It's wonderful. First, I have two things to ask you. First, I need volunteers to serve on this team with me. We already have 3 speakers. I've already talked to one this morning, willing to engage us in forums, a discussion group, or other kind of activity. We have Mark Mullinax is waiting in the wings. He's ready to do whatever we want. He's got a list a mile long of topics of interest that I think most of us would like to hear and be involved in. Please join me in the revival of these opportunities for all of us so that we can all enjoy them. Let me know after the service if any of you are willing to join me. All right, number 2. To gauge the interest in these activities, it would help if you fill out the very brief survey that's in your order of service, letting me know the days and times that you would be available to attend any of these presentations. There's a basket in the foyer for you to drop them off. So just take a few minutes, fill them out. There are pins out there if you would do this. We need to know if there's enough interest for us to mount this effort, because it's going to be fantastic if we do it. Thanks.
In the words of that well-known philosopher Yogi Berra, It's deja vu all over again. It is my distinct pleasure to again introduce the Reverend Michael Carter. Thank you, Michael, for being a regular here in our pulpit. As you know, Michael needs no introduction. He's a board-certified chaplain, retired, and anti-racist diversity consultant. He currently serves as the minister of the Congregation of the Swannanoa Valley in Black Mountain. And let me remind you, today is the second in 3 services that Michael will be conducting on atheism. The final will be on April 2, when he will consider the particular case of the atheism of African Americans. So mark your calendars now.
Good morning. It's going to be springtime today. I'll make sure you get out in time. It's good to see. Good to see you again. So our words this morning are a little long, but I kind of think this was apropos. By Unitarian Universalist Deborah Falk. She writes, "A chalice lit in our midst is a symbol of our liberal faith. It is a faith built on the foundation of freedom and reason and welcome. A faith sustained by acts of kindness and justice, a faith that envisions a world flourishing with equality for all people. A faith that demands the living out of our goodness, requires thoughtfulness, and a faith of wholeness. This tiny flame is the symbol of the spark within each and every one of us." So with that in mind, I invite you to rise as you are willing and able and join in singing our opening hymn this morning, hymn number 42. You didn't bring the hymnal. We don't have a hymnal, do we? Oh, it's over here.
To see night veiled in mystery, glorious the earth and resplendent skies. Pilgrims we march along, singing our joyous song out through an earthly paradise. Mourn.
Let's sing it. It's not a dirge.
Sing it. Sing it. And can you make my mic a little louder, please? I can't
Yeah.
even.
Let's start
Yeah.
it again, y'all. It's Sunday.
All right, sing it, people. Sing. Here we go. Verse 1. Ready and morning so fair to see, night veiled in mystery, glorious the earth and resplendent skies. Pilgrims we march along, singing our joyous song as through an earthly paradise. Tall are the verdant trees, deep are the flashing seas, glorious each wonder the seasons bring. Brighter his face surmise, shining in pilgrims' eyes, from which our waking spirits spring. Age after age we rise, 'neath the eternal skies, into the light from the shadowed past.
Thank you. Please be seated. Yeah, that felt a little better. Our responsive reading this morning is number 594. I'm sure it's familiar to you. We'll read it responsively. Principles and purposes for us all. We affirm and we promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person.
It's important.
We affirm and we promote justice, equity, and compassion in human relations.
We believe that all people should be treated fairly.
We affirm and promote acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth.
We believe that our churches are places where all people are accepted and where we keep on learning together.
We promote and affirm a free and responsible search for truth and meaning.
We believe that each person must be free to search for what is true and right in life.
We affirm and promote the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process.
We believe that all people should have a voice and a vote about the things which concern them.
We affirm and promote the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all.
We believe that we should work for a peaceful, fair, and free world.
And finally, we affirm and promote respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part.
We believe that we should care for our planet Earth.
Now we have to go out and do that. Okay, you're on.
Now is the time for our ritual of joys and concerns. This is a moment of intimate sharing for our faith community, a time when we're invited to reflect on our personal lives and those heartfelt experiences we've had during the week. Joy and sorrow, gratitude and disappointment, worry and peace, these feelings are common among us. And this is our time to honor these sacred moments and our sacred milestones. In our ritual, we have a community bowl of fresh water, a precious natural resource which we use sparingly. We also have stones, smooth and heavy in our hands. These stones symbolize life's pleasures at times of ease and life's burdens and times of heaviness. Those who wish to participate in the ritual are asked to submit their joy or concern in advance, or you may simply raise your hand when invited to do so, and I'll place a stone in the community bowl of water. Helen B. offers a stone of concern for everyone experiencing cold, ice, sleet, and freezing rain. I can attest from personal experience, freezing rain is dangerous. Claire Sees tells us her gallbladder is gone, and she's recovering well at home. Helen S. says, it was a joy to see nature's National UUA's Minister of the Earth wanting to sponsor a youth for a Louisiana skill building conference on resilience in the face of climate change. Fran and Bob G. report that Bob has a very positive post-op visit to Duke recently. At this time, he will not need further therapy and will continue with checkups every 3 months. He is gaining strength and feeling better each day, and he is so grateful for all those who've offered their support during this difficult time. And now, raise your hand if you'd like Michael to drop a stone in for you. And now Michael will drop a final stone for those concerns that may be held in silence among us. May all of our thoughts and prayers today be held in this loving community. Amen.
I now invite you, because you know how to do it best for yourselves, to join in the spirit of prayer and meditation. As I usually do when I'm here, we will have a time of silence after the meditation. I thought this was apropos. It's called Creatures and Creators by Brother Richard Gilbert. It's for all the theists and the atheists in the room. Creatures and creators. When we are silent, we feel creation within us, pulsing in our veins, beating in our hearts, and dancing in our minds. When we are quiet, we know we are creatures, children of a mysterious source we cannot fathom, offspring of a power we cannot control, recipients of a gift we cannot earn. We live in a world not of our making, a world we barely understand in our best moments, a world which sustains us, but we don't know why. We walk humbly before such immensity, awestruck at its wild beauty and delicate charm. We know we cannot create such a world, but yet somehow we are creators too. We take in its beauty and make it our own. We meet other creatures and seek to build with them a community, and we become co-creators with a mystery. In our wisest moments, we know not if creation has purpose, if it has direction, if there is some ultimate meaning to it all. All we know is that we, creatures in the vastness and timeless of space, can find a home in this intricate web of existence, can forge our own meanings from the unknown, and can make a life out of this creative force we dare not even name. And so now, while our minds are one, I'll leave you with the eloquence of silence. And so it is. Oh my God. Oh, okay. Sometimes I forget. I thought we were going to sing another song. But it's time for me to tell you about Atheism 2.0. Okay, what I want to do is I want to continue the thread, and forgive me, sometimes I get mixed up from my congregation, what the sequence of things. For those of you who are just here for the first time, this is going to be the second of three. We're going to talk about African American atheism on Palm Sunday. What better time? And I am not an atheist, so I just wanted to air that out. Not that I'm ashamed, but I just want you to know where we're coming from. So some of it will be repetitive, but let's just get into it. As I mentioned the last time, I have been researching, and there's some Pew studies about that the fact that in about 10 years, I always think it's closer because they don't want people to panic like they did with the browning of America by 2030, but it's happening now. Well, it's the same thing with atheism, that probably, they say 2010, most of this nation, most of the people here will identify as atheist or non-religious. Europe is already dealing with this. They've been dealing with this for decades. But we are going to find out what that's like. I think, no doubt, for more conservative brothers and sisters, theologically speaking, kind of makes them nervous because we've kind of bought into that this was a Christian nation and the founding fathers were Christians and yada, 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 which is not really true. But let's not be confused by facts. So lately, I have been thinking about whether or not UUism is a religion. And I have come down on, not trying to say you need to think this way, but I have come down on, it's like Buddhism. It's more philosophy. And I say that because how can a religion appeal to people who identify as atheist or agnostic? So that's where I come down. Doesn't make it any less of what we are, but I think that, and I think that's a blessing and a curse. And let me explain that. I think it can be a curse because if you're on the elevator, we don't have an elevator speech. If someone asks you, you're a Unitarian Universalist, well, what do you believe? And hopefully you won't go into what you don't believe because that's always easier to do, but we can't do it in 10 seconds or less. We can't do it in 30 seconds or less. That is the curse. I think that as the country, the pendulum continues to swing to the right, because it probably will, everybody gets a turn. Every nation gets, it's karma, everybody gets a turn. So we may have to deal with some, I use the F word, fascism, not authoritarian. It's fascism. We may have to deal with that here. I hope not, but we may have to. But as the country goes more to the right, I'm hoping more people will find out who and what we are. We don't like to proselytize. And maybe that's the reason that we've only been at 1,000 churches for so long. We haven't, it's like a holding pattern. 1,000 churches in the U.S. and Canada. The blessing, on the other hand, at least to my mind, is that in a world that is destroying itself over so many things, one of them being religion, our secular acceptance and stance with regards of welcoming people in our congregations and denomination who do not believe in a God, who are non-theistic, call it what you will, may be the wave of the future, at least in a world that appears to be becoming less religious depending on the circumstances. Now, I'll talk about it a little bit, but, like I said, I am not an atheist. I'm more mystical in my theological underpinnings. But I notice that when people identify as atheist or humanistic or agnostic, and there's a believer in the house, it's almost like you smell bad. It's almost like you've got a virus I don't want to catch. It's almost like you are immoral or you don't have ethics because you say, I don't believe in a deity. I don't believe in a God. And we'll go into this a little more with African American humanism and atheism because it's not a sepia-toned clone of this. There's some differences there. So, many people who are turning to religion, everybody's not turning away from religion, but the churches, mainline churches, are really losing a lot of people. And so, especially in Western culture. But there are people who come to religion because in times of uncertainty, they're afraid. They're coming because they feel marginalized and they feel left out because in a nation that's hard to accept it, and it's changing, we're like a refuge. You know what I mean? You can come here. Unitarian Universalism, we'll accept you. You just come on in. You believe in the principles, then just come on in. Many of these people turn to us as a refuge. In 1933, Unitarian Universalist clergy affirmed a document which I'm sure you've heard of called the Humanist Manifesto. Have you heard of that? Okay. It was signed by a good number of UU clergy saying that we would draw not only on religious teachings and religion, but we would draw on humanist teachings which counsel us to heed the guidance of reason, the results of science, and to warn us against the idolatries of the spirit. And if that sounds familiar, this is our sixth purpose. And it sets us apart from our more traditional religious neighbors. One of the greatest atheists in the world, the Dalai Lama, has long talked about the need for a secular ethics that coexists along with religion. Not saying get rid of religion, but we need something that's more universal. And His Holiness says that although he is a monk, he sees no contradiction in this stance. He says that his faith, and that's the word he uses, his faith enjoins him to strive for the welfare and benefit of all sentient beings and to reach out to those of other faiths and those who have no faith at all. He goes on to say in a wonderful book, it's old now, you probably read it, Beyond Religion. He says, I am confident that it is both possible and worthwhile to attempt a new secular approach to universal ethics. He says, and my confidence comes from my conviction that all of us as human beings are basically inclined toward the good, right? So we say the same thing. We're not Calvinists. We don't say you're born in sin and you're not worthy. We don't tell you that. It's not healthy to grow up believing that. And so he says, I am of the firm opinion that we have within our grasp a way and a means to ground inner values without contradicting any religion and yet, crucially, without depending on religion. So you have your cake and you eat it too. And this is what we've been doing as Unitarians. We don't throw away our Christian roots. We don't throw them away. But we say there are other paths that are just as valid. His Holiness reminds us that in the long-standing Indian tradition, secular ethics means having respect for all religious traditions, and even for those people who don't have any a particular faith. It's a secular approach to peace of mind and ethical behavior that all 9 billion people on the planet can kind of rally around. Now again, this kind of talk makes people nervous. It especially makes our evangelical brothers and sisters nervous. Why? Because it's antichrist kind of talk. It's one world religion kind of talk. And it gets them anxious. But that's not what we're talking about. This is what UUism attempts to prove by embracing humanism and or atheism. I'm using them interchangeably. And this is why I refer to UUism as a religion. As a philosophy and not a religion. Even Pope Francis, it's just like Buddhism, right? You can be a Buddhist, you can practice Buddhist principles and not be a Buddhist, right? And you can be a UU without joining a UU church. Maybe this is one of the reasons why our congregations have flatlined, because as mainline Protestantism has gotten more progressive, they figure, why do I have to leave and recreate the wheel? I can stay here. But there are many people who do not consider themselves UU that resonate with our 8 principles. Even Pope Francis has said that one does not need to believe in God and still lead a moral and ethical life. So, that's the recap. Now we go forward. I was researching and I came across a man, another Frenchman. I can pronounce his name. His name is Alain de Botton. And Mr. Baton self-identifies as an atheist, but he intrigued me with the following statement. He says that the question, is God real? It's the most boring question that anybody can ask. And he calls his brand of atheism, Atheism 2.0. Baton is an author, a philosopher, and he's founder of the School of Life, a London-based institute developing emotional intelligence through the help of culture. He's the author of several bestsellers, including How Proust Can Change Your Life and Religion for Atheists, a non-believer's guide to the uses of religion. What drew me to him is well, we're going to go through that, but I know me personally, for my friends that are very religious, I've betrayed them. And for my folks who are not religious, they're like, it's too spiritual. And he talks about this. I've had people leave my church because they told me that I was too spiritual. But that's okay, because you got to go to what feeds your spirit. If this doesn't feed your spirit, then you got to go. And blessings to you. He's made a career, Baton, of concretizing big ideas for general audiences. And so his basic question is, how do we live well? How do I live a life of compassion? How do I live a more resplendent, I love that word, a more resplendent life? A life filled with compassion. This is what he's focused on. And so he starts from the point of departure. He says, I'm not angry with religion. I'm not even trying to I don't want to destroy religion. You know, a lot of atheistic brothers and sisters, they're still mad. They need therapy. Because, they get riled up. He's not there. He says there are things religions do well, and his goal is to discover ways to replicate those things in a secular context. He criticizes his fellow atheists who, he says, they fail to ask the right questions about religion. The most boring question is, do angels exist? Is Jesus the Son of God? He says, why are we even going there? He said that's not moving us forward. He says he's more interested in, why do people get drawn to religion? Why did we invent religion? What need does religion serve? And also, what are the aspects around religious life that may be disconnected from belief but still has great validity and resonance for people outside of faith today? Now, I don't know about you, but I found this refreshing, especially coming from the African-American community, because I was raised Baptist. And even for me, you see why I'm not there anymore. It works for my parents, but I couldn't think outside the box without someone saying, I need to pray for you. And I don't care if you pray for me, but I don't want you to pray for me because you think you're better than me, or if you think you got an answer I don't. And so I couldn't wrestle with stuff there. And I still have great respect for it, but I can't live there. And that's why I came to Unitarian Universalism. I just found this interesting. This turns the volume way down on us versus them. Theists versus non-theists. He goes on to say, when asked about what religions did best, he says they're not just claims about the supernatural. Religion gives you techniques to live. They aim to guide you from birth to death, to teach you things like what? I'm glad you asked. To teach how to create community, to create modes of behavior, not to control, to generate aesthetic experiences. And all of this seems to be incredibly and more important than are we going to argue about is Jesus the Son of God. That train has left the station. Religion teaches us how to locate the tenets of a good life, a wise life, a kind life. You don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. But I like it that he's interrogating universal themes. And I'm attracted to those aspects of religion because human life, it's hard. It's hard to be a good human being. It's very difficult to live up to what you say you're about. And we don't always do that. De Botton is altering the direction of the conversation about what it means to be an atheist. He is redirecting the conversation in a more positive way. I love Brother Richard Dawkins. I mean, he's gone, and Christopher Hitchens, but it just got to be antagonistic. It just got to be, I don't care what you're uncomfortable. And, that's not going to help us talk to each other. So we want to move the conversation forward. What can religion teach us today? When I had to study European history, and I had to study some of it in seminary because you cannot not and get a grasp on things. But if you remember in the 19th century, not that you were there, I'm not trying to insult you, in Western Europe, there was, they're turning away from God in the sense of science. Some of these things can be explained scientifically. And so people were trying to fill, how do I fill this God gap? How do I fill this God hole? Because we're moving away from that. And there were lots of theories. And what they came up with was culture. And this is the case because when you go on your European trips or your junkets or whatever, when you look at the libraries and you look at the theaters and the universities that were built in that age of declining religion, they were creating these great temples of art and libraries and temples of learning where once you would go there, you go to a temple of religion. It failed. But that's what they were trying to do. They were trying to replace it. See, because if I go to Harvard or I go to New York and go to the Museum of Modern Art and I fall on my knees and start praying or questioning the meaning of life, they would lock me up. Because that's not what we do now. So I like Brother Botton. He is targeting people who are more interested in looking for a higher purpose. And so what I want you to do, so we can go home, because it's so nice out. I'm going to cut this down. He takes fire from both sides. He says he doesn't care. He says there's always going to be people who criticize you, and that's a lesson in and of itself. He did say that he discovered that he doesn't catch the hell in Europe that he does here because American atheists have to explain why you're an atheist. He said, we've gone through that already in Europe. We don't have to go through that. And when we talk about secular, we don't mean that we have contempt for religion. Again, we're talking about respect. He says, and so the stigma of atheism that we have in America, he doesn't have that in Europe. I think we could learn a little bit from that. But, and I'll leave you with this. Religion comes from a place of vulnerability. Whether you're looking at King's sermons or Howard Thurman, whether you're listening to Zora Neale Hurston talk about, and we'll talk about her, she was atheist, Langston Hughes. And that's what's intriguing. That, wealthy people who are privileged, when you hear the New Testament verse, the first shall be last and the last shall be first, you don't want to hear that. That's not something you want to hear. The religion of the oppressed will always be different from the religion of the privileged. But remember what King's mentor said, Howard Thurman, said that any truth found in religion is there because it is true. It's not true simply because it's found in the religion. You have to remember that. It's there because it's true. It's not true just because it's in the religion. And so, religion is about being vulnerable. And like so many things in life, perhaps we can revisit atheism. Let's look at it again. You don't have to be an atheist to do it. I'm doing it, and it's fun. I don't agree with everything in it, but I'm getting something out of these talks. And so perhaps we can revisit Unitarian Universalism. Right? Remember, the unexamined life is not worth living. And Malcolm X reminds us that the unexamined faith is not worth having. Let's go back and look at what we say we really believe. Because what I believe now, I may not believe in 3 years. I may not believe it on Friday. Because life is changing, we're evolving, and we're always becoming. And so we're worth the time, you're worth the time to revisit your beliefs. And then perhaps we can still lead a joyful and productive and abundant life, even after considering all the facts. Amen, Ashe, and blessed be. Let's go home. What's the next one? Soon. We're going home soon. Oh, offering. Yeah, we're going to, yeah. I knew, yeah, you don't want to forget the money, but now you know I'm not in it for the money because I forgot it. Okay. In the words of one of my favorite philosophers, William James, the purpose of life is to spend it on something that will outlast it. And in this spirit, we will collect this morning's offering.
Let's dedicate the offering in unison. To the work of this congregation, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action, we dedicate our offerings and the best of who we are. And let me announce that someone left a set of keys in the downstairs women's restroom. They are at the sound desk now. So don't leave those keys here, please. And now, if please rise as you're willing and able to sing a congregational hymn, "We Would Be One."
We would be one in and we join in singing a hymn of love to pledge ourselves anew to that high cause of greater understanding of who we are and what in us is true. We would be one in living for each other to show to all a new community. We would be one in building for tomorrow a nobler world than we have known today. We would be one in searching for that meaning which binds our hearts and points us on our way. As one we pledge ourselves to greater service, with love and justice strive to make us free.
Please be seated. I'm not going to do it. The closing words with which we extinguish the chalice are from Elaine Gallagher Gurman. Walk softly, speak truthfully, love gently, breathe deeply, live wisely, and go in peace. Before our postlude, I'd like to thank everyone who's helped with today's service. Our visiting minister, Michael, our award-winning vocalist and pianist, Jenna Jaffe, our AV tech, Ed Law, soon-to-be pastor, and you, a most enthusiastic and loving audience. Thank you all.
If you'd like a spirit of life. Spirit of life, come unto me, sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion, blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.